up, everybody? I'm Jaxton Wheeler. For those of you that don't know who I am, if it's your first time seeing me, I'm 35 and over a decade into my entertainment career, and I think I'm just realizing that I've really never taken the time to introduce myself on my videos, assuming that I would pick people that are watching me for the first time, right? So let me address that. Again, I'm Jaxton Wheeler. I'm originally from Central Florida. I've been in the adult entertainment industry now for well over a decade, sort of on all levels of the adult side. I travel a lot internationally. I'm involved in a lot of community things, activism, and other philanthropists. Look, I don't know how you want to say it, but like, I don't usually hoard what I have. I usually take what I have to put myself in better positions so I can take better care of those around me. And if I ever have more than I need wherever I am, I usually find a way to do something to try to give back to wherever I am, especially because I can definitely say in my life I've been given a lot of hospitality from those who I've encountered. And that just comes, I believe, with just being a genuinely caring person. You're not always going to be right, but there's a difference when you're coming from the right place, and there's a difference when you're being malicious or nefarious or doing things that you know are morally wrong but still doing them or deceiving people anyways. I know, my own faults through life, but anyhow, again, I just want to slightly introduce myself. I've been involved in the adult industry, like I said, well over a decade. I've been doing music now for well over 10 years. That's getting to a point where it's about to cross over into professionalism for me as well. I'm very excited for that. But why we're here today, what I'm going to start doing with this is, I've been deplatformed a lot, but there's a lot of things I would like to push out there that are good journalism and good talking points for people to hear. And I feel the translation gets lost through me at times because of the perception that I feel is out there because of me. So what I feel we will do instead is we're both going to watch what I watch anyways, and we can see how each other took what was heard. Okay, so one of the people that I've come to like in the most recent years, I do like Joe Rogan for a lot of reasons. And again, not everybody's right all the time. And he's one of the first ones to admit it. So going forward, Russel Brand, you may remember him from Forgetting Sarah Marshall and other wildly famous movies like Get Him to the Greek was my favorite. And he and his team run a podcast which is majorly on a new platform called Rumble, RUMBLE.com. You can go on there. It's free, I believe, to sign up. You can host your own podcast and stuff on there too, but they're really, I guess, about not censoring people, as long as you're not trying to be like hateful and get people to hurt other people. But like, if you just want to report opinions and different studies and things like that, essentially what they're doing is taking everything that's being published around the world and giving it a platform for more people to see stuff that's getting swept under the carpet by the mainstream media. So one of the things that I said from the beginning is there's something up with this whole pandemic thing, this whole extreme fear concerning corona and everything like that, when honestly it should have been really looked at than no more than a different kind of flu that we were going to get over and through, and we just needed to keep people healthy and not freaked out and traumatized, right? So I'm going to bring this up here. You can see this. So this is Russel Brand. This is Rumble. I'm going to go ahead and play this. This is Daddy watching Granddaddy. Got some ads here. We'll get through this.
The FDA have approved an Alzheimer's drug even though it doesn't work. Is there any history of the FDA approving drugs that definitely don't work? Meanwhile, they're attempting to...
Now, one of the things I want to say about this, I'll get better at this process as we go along. During the pandemic, when the vaccines came out, everybody got on board because they said that the FDA had approved this vaccine. And if you actually know anything about the FDA, they are funded by the same people making the medicines. So I don't know what universe you've grown up in, but normally the people that regulate themselves are not the best people to regulate themselves, especially when there's money involved. Lots and lots of money.
Categorise aging as a disease. That's weird. Almost as if once it's a disease, they could approve and sell drugs that reverse and stop it. Maybe one day we'll have a vaccine for aging. Hopefully that one will work. None of us want to get older, do we? Because ultimately aging means death, decline, and ending up in a wooden box. But it's a bit of a stretch to say that aging is a disease. Not if you want to sell drugs to reverse it, it isn't. The Food and Drug Administration considers aging to be a natural process. That's right, that's part of natural history. Things are born, they live, they die, they decay. Molecules move further and further apart over time. That seems to be part of the way that reality operates on this strata. Not very profitable, is it? This makes it difficult to get FDA approval for drugs that seek to slow or reverse the biological process of aging. Instead, drugs intended to target aging must target a disease that often results from the aging process in order to demonstrate efficacy and gain approval. But there is a growing consensus and effort among scientists to convince the FDA that aging itself should be classified as a disease and an appropriate target for drug development. This, I suppose, is what happens when profit becomes the pinnacle of all endeavour. We understand that commerce has an endpoint, that in order to engage in certain practices, there has to be a revenue stream. But when health gets conflated with profit, it generates problems of this nature. We end up at a point...
And I just want to take a moment here. You can see this person I'm presenting to you, Russel Brand, even though he's a comedian, he is not, this is not like Comedy Central's Daily Show, right? He's literally taking articles from newspapers and journals and just reading it to you and then breaking it down with a very straightforward, logical stance on everything. So we're going to keep watching here.
Where aging, an entirely natural process, is classified as problematic and indeed a disease in order to generate profit. If the FDA is swayed, the resulting regulatory shift could mean approval of drugs or treatments that slow or reverse the aging process generally. If the FDA is swayed, you can't sway the FDA, they're there to regulate food and drugs. Is this food alright? Is this drugs alright? You're not swaying us, we do fund you. Right, just tell us again, what do we need to do? This of course demonstrates the problem of having...
And this is another thing too, like, you know, when the vaccine was coming out, it was so like, oh, it's FDA approved, it's FDA approved. It's like, again, like, and you're going to see here, just, there's a direct correlation to how much the pharmaceutical companies are funding the people that are supposed to be regulating them. And then we get into a trap to where, oh, well, how did we let all these faulty drugs on the market? And how did, how on earth could we have let them inject our children with this stuff? Look at what it's done. And then we're just going to go right back to this and show you like, whoa, there was a pattern of the more that these companies gave the FDA, the more a blind eye and the more cases that came up. So at what point do you put 1 and 1 and say it equals 2 instead of trying to make up a reason for why it shouldn't equate or whatever you want to say. Here we go.
having a regulatory body funded by the companies that it's supposed to regulate. The pharmaceutical industry funding alone has become so dominant that last year it accounted for 3/4 or $1.1 billion of the agency's drug division budget. Changes in more recent years have also increased the number of standard new drug applications approved the first time around by the FDA from 38% in 2005 to 61% in 2018. In diseases where there are not many medication options for patients, 89% of new drug applications were approved the first time around. See?
And that's scary. Now, you're going to want to argue that with time passing, medication has gotten better, technology's gotten better, yada yada, yada yada. Reality is, with this happening, these pharmaceutical companies have been getting slammed with more and more lawsuits. Not almost, every time you see a commercial in the United States about a drug or something that you can file a lawsuit for now. Did you have this and blah, 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 blah. All that stuff was FDA approved. And you want these things to go through very, very vigorous trials, obviously. Because once you take these things, there's no going back if it goes wrong sometimes. And then, that should be pretty self-explanatory why the FDA should not be taking its funding from the companies that it's supposed to be keeping in line with just simple efficacy. Here we go.
You have 75% of your funding from the companies that you regulate. Do you think that more drugs will be approved by the regulatory body or less? I'd say it'll be about 75% of new drugs will be approved. 89% of new drug applications were approved the first time round. Well, that's actually a 14% profit even on their investment. Most recently, the COVID-19 pandemic has seen the FDA provide emergency use authorizations for potential treatments in a matter of weeks, not months. Here's what we could expect if the FDA is swayed. The market for regenerative therapies will expand to nearly the entire adult population. Regenerative therapy companies targeting the biological process of aging are currently limited to addressing specific diseases or medical conditions to obtain FDA approval. Drugs or therapies that get to the market are typically limited in approved use for one disease. Approval for additional diseases often come years later. Removal of the disease-specific regulatory barriers would make regenerative therapies available as preventative care solutions. Simply put, therapies that target the process of aging itself will enjoy a nearly unlimited market compared to therapies with the same mechanism that target a single disease. Once aging is categorized as a disease, then life itself becomes a marketing opportunity. Are you aging? Well, yeah, because I was born and I'm going to die. Well, we've got drugs for that. Actually, we've got loads of them, and they're being approved extremely quickly. The FDA will likely revisit this issue as scientific pressure mounts to declare aging a drug target. That's not scientific pressure, that's marketing pressure. Part of the problem is that the FDA needs more guidance to determine how aging should be measured, and needs to see evidence that targeting aging biomarkers actually has a beneficial effect. The FDA are meant to be a regulatory body. Where do they get their guidance from? From seances? From Gandalf? Where do they go to get this guidance? Do you think that they might go to the same place that they get their funding from? Oh, we're being guided to say that aging is a disease now. The FDA recently expressed a willingness to consider biomarkers for the identification of early stage Alzheimer's disease. Speaking of Alzheimer's,
new findings from a congressional investigation into the Food and Drug Administration and the biotech company Biogen find that the FDA broke its own protocols to approve a new Alzheimer's drug last year. The findings conclude that the regulator worked too closely with Biogen despite significant concerns over the limited benefits and side effects of the new drug Aduhelm.
You're working too closely. There are limited benefits.
And it's happening right in the open and right in front of all of our faces right now. So again, when a lot of us saw the way they were acting and how quick they were trying to push this without doing necessary research about natural immunity and things like that, it became quite apparent to a lot of us that this wasn't about saving lives. It was about making profit. Again, you can Google Pfizer lawsuit and you can Google Johnson and Johnson lawsuit, and they 2019 or right before had just lost both lawsuits worth over hundreds of millions of dollars. So they needed something to get shares back up for shareholders. Here we go.
The side effects are worrying. Approved.
Judy, when the FDA approved the drug back in June of 2021, Biogen had hoped to earn billions of dollars off of it within a few years.
That's what their hope was. Their hope isn't to help people with Alzheimer's. Their hope is to make money. So during the pandemic, when Albert Bourla said it would be reprehensible to make a profit from this drug, what do you think they really meant? Oh, they did make a tremendous amount of profit from that.
But the congressional report found numerous problems in the lead up to that approval, including the FDA's interactions with Biogen were, quote, atypical and included collaboration in at least 115 meetings, calls, and emails about the drug.
That's quite a lot. Also, do you think that collaboration is the right way to describe a relationship between a regulatory body and a corporation that they're meant to be regulating? It's not Justin Timberlake and Pharrell. They're not jamming. They're not ripping. They're meant to be responsibly releasing medicines to a public that are necessary for their health. But once you know that their hope is to make $3 billion of profits in a couple of years, you know that it actually is just a corporate enterprise, and that the FDA are there to rubber stamp and endorse and to provide a veil of approval rather than to ensure that negative products do not reach the marketplace.
The FDA approved Aduhelm for Alzheimer's patients despite the lack of clinical trial data and concerns among FDA advisors.
So do you have any clinical trial data? No. Do you have concerns? Yes. So are you going to release the drug? We are. Something about this patent seems familiar. God, I wouldn't like to see that replicated on a global scale at any point.
And Biogen set an unjustifiably high price of $56,000 a year for patients in order to, quote, make history.
It's not Napoleon or Jesse Owens trying to get in the record books or conquer new territories. It's meant to be utility. It's meant to be that you make a product that people require. Today we make history. Oh, how did you do that exactly? We released an Alzheimer's drug that doesn't work for a lot of money. Oh, well done. Are you sure you want that in the history book? Oh yes, put it in the history book. When can we read that? In 75 years. The Food and Drug Administration's process for approving the Alzheimer's drug Aduhelm, despite great uncertainty about whether it worked, was rife with irregularities. One thing people with Alzheimer's do not need is great uncertainty. According to a congressional investigation released on Thursday, the agency's actions raised serious concerns about FDA's lapses in protocol, the report concluded. It makes me feel that all the regulatory bodies and all of the officials that are trotted out to assure you that things are okay, that things are normal, that you can trust the system, that you can trust the government, have themselves already been co-opted by the corporate menace that most of us are concerned about, by the increasing power of these unaccountable entities that appear to be increasingly dominant in our social spaces. It's not like the FDA is an independent body that's responsibly funded, that's reliable, that's a mouthpiece and a voice for the people. They're simply wallpaper over corruption. The 18-month investigation initiated by 2 congressional committees after the FDA approved the drug also strongly criticised Biogen, Aduhelm's manufacturer. Internal documents showed the company set an unjustifiably high price of $56,000 a year for Aduhelm because it wanted a history-making blockbuster to establish Aduhelm as one of the top pharmaceutical launches of all time. It's not a movie. It's not Avatar 2. This is a drug that's meant to help people who are forgetful, who've got out.
Like, and it's all right there in front of our faces. This is the people you're gonna trust when they say you need to take a booster. You don't think you should possibly start talking with your neighbor about protests and things like that? Perhaps unions need to come back. It will not destroy the country. It will not. It won't. As long as we keep our business laws the way they are, people are always going to come here to try to make more money. So, anyways, moving on.
Alzheimer's that are deteriorating mentally. You shouldn't be launching it with the same mentality of a Marvel Phase 5. This is brilliant. Phase 5 of Alzheimer's drug. We're going to have Iron Man, Spider-Man, a girl version of Thor. It's going be brilliant. Sorry, what you're supposed to be making is medicine. You're supposed to be helping people. Alzheimer's, assemble! There's going to be a really sad bit where Tony Stark dies. What of? Alzheimer's, actually, because the medicine was sadly ineffective. But profitable. Also, an unjustifiably high price. Whoa, that's a high price. Can you justify that? No. The investigation said Biogen was prepared to spend up to several $1 billion, more than 2.5 times what it spent developing the drug, on aggressive marketing to counter expected pushback over whether Aduhelm was worth its price. So imagine the process of this. Does this drug work? No. But we're going to spend more money than we spent developing the drug and paying the FDA to approve it potentially, allegedly, by marketing the drug very well against the inevitable pushback that will come when you release a drug that doesn't work. That's a flawless plan. The report said the campaign planned to target doctors, patients, advocacy groups, insurers, policymakers, and communities of colour who are drastically underrepresented in its clinical trials of the drug. It's good to see that they've learned the lessons of the opioid crisis, which was somewhat brought about by co-opting doctors and lying. They're trying to find new markets. They don't look at it as a healthcare concern. They look at it as a...
Now, I don't know how you feel watching this, hearing this, understanding this, but it is utterly irritating to me. Let me know what you think.
A marketing opportunity. That's why the language is strewn with terms like blockbusters and making history. That's not the humble language of helping people. What this is the visible manifestation of a flawed mentality, which, if you imagine it extrapolated to a global scale, would be a huge problem. So when we're talking about the mentality that created some of the problems around the pandemic, the censorship around the pandemic, the profiting around the pandemic, the aggressive marketing around the pandemic, this is a microcosm of that mentality. You can look at this and imagine how their minds might work based on the systems they work within. Now, when you look at this story, do you think, oh, well, they would never do that elsewhere. They'd never do it. Of course, that's what institutional thinking means. That's what a systemic approach to a problem reveals. This is what they did with an Alzheimer's drug. Do you imagine that there was no marketing techniques deployed during the pandemic? Do you imagine there was no PR exercises? Do you imagine that there was no attempt to exact profits to conceal the truth? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. An internal inquiry, which the FDA had not previously disclosed, found that agency officials leading the Aduhelm evaluation did not pay enough attention to dissenting views from the agency's own statistical team. Oh, dissenting views were marginalised and maligned. It's these dissenters. They're causing more Alzheimer's. This is an Alzheimer's of the anti-Aduhelms. That's what's caused it. All these anti-Aduhelmers out there, they're causing more Alzheimer's, I reckon. Well, keep blaming them. Spend more money on the marketing. This Aduhelm's not working. What you need is an Aduhelm booster. How often do I need these Aduhelm boosters? Forever. Which isn't going to be long, because you'll probably be dead soon. That's why aging is a disease now. So everybody who's old has to take some medication for it. Have you got a vaccine for aging? It's on its way. Oh, should I take it? Should you take it? It's going to be fucking mandatory. From the agency's own statistical team, which said there was inadequate evidence that Aduhelm worked. Inadequate evidence that it even worked. After expressing those reservations, team members were excluded from some deliberations and given little notice about the preparation of a key document. These dissenting people, what should we do about them? You know, sort of saying that the drug doesn't work. I have an idea. Go on. What if we just don't let them in the room? And then their dissent would be in another room where we couldn't hear them. But what about preparation of this key document? Just don't tell them about the key document. I like you. You're going to go far in Aduhelm. The FDA is now evaluating 2 other Alzheimer's drugs for possible approval early next year, including one that Biogen helped develop. From the people that bought your Aduhelm, a new Alzheimer's drug that also doesn't work. Thank fuck people with Alzheimer's are pretty forgetful. Otherwise, there'll be no profit in this business at all.
At what point are you not allowed to produce in that industry anymore? Because it's not like entertainment, right? Okay, you put on 100 shows a year, maybe you have like 2 or 3 bad shows, right? It happens. This is people's health. That's why it's supposed to be the FDA. There's the FCC, but still, it's not to protect your life. Let me know what you think.
So there you are. If you have a regulatory body that is funded by the corporations that is meant to be regulating, it's likely that there will be a conflict of interest, or actually a total lack of conflict of interest, a convergence of interest that could lead to drugs getting approved that shouldn't, drugs being marketed in ways that are aggressive. I'm being somewhat specious and facetious saying that exactly this modality could lead to the pandemic, and I'm not suggesting that vaccines were entirely ineffective, certainly not on this platform. What I am saying is that when you have collaboration that's that immersive, it's not...
Oh, quickly here why he said that. So, Russell started on YouTube, but YouTube started doing a lot of heavy censorship. So then Russell moved his platform to Rumble. He still posts like the first 12 to 15 minutes on YouTube where he's very cautious of what he says while in that segment, and then the rest of the clip is available on Rumble. So we're watching the first 13 minutes of this segment here, but just to give you guys an idea of what I'm trying to tell y'all, here's somebody who can say it better than I, and who has a team. He has money and a budget. I don't.
Ultimately beneficial to the people that are taking the drugs. It's beneficial to the people that are making and producing the drugs. And what I'm suggesting to you is that these institutions and systems operate in this way across the board. Occasionally something small becomes visible that allows you to test and diagnose what the problem is more broadly, which is actually how science is supposed to work and what they should be fucking doing at the FDA and Biogen. But that's simply not a profitable way to pursue these kind of corporate interests. When you have institutional collaboration of this nature, it's pretty close to corruption, I would argue. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll see you in a moment.
All right. Well, that was Daddy watching Granddaddy, Russel Brand. Just going over a little bit, that was just a small taste of how the FDA pretty much operates, you know. Once you see it, I don't think you can unsee it. So keep that in mind, please, for yourselves. And if you haven't yet, please visit my website, JaxtonWheelerFans.com. I love y'all, and if you guys love some music, I got that too. On Spotify, you can find me Jaxton Wheeler. You can pretty much find me anywhere. And what I would love is, if you guys do TikToks or Reels and stuff like that, you can actually use my music if you search Jaxton Wheeler. Alright? Well, like I said, I love y'all. Thank you so much for watching. And we're going to do some more of these, I think.
I want everyone, but not everyone. I just wanna spread, maybe have some fun. Let my demons run, many lessons learned. Maybe it's my turn. I want everyone loving away. Yeah, baby, tell me what you gotta say. Loving away, it don't make me feel the same. I love the way you play games. Oh, by the way, I've been doing the same.